they are favoring public schools against private schools, and they're trying to give the best of the best, in fact, the Ivy League schools to public school students as opposed to private schools. How did you come by this conclusion?
Thank you very much, Johnny. And let me congratulate 3FM for such a wonderful, studio. This is the first time for this year I'm visiting you here. So let me also use the opportunity to wish you a happy new year.
You have waited to be here since the new studio came. Welcome.
Yeah, so Johnny, good morning also to our cherished listeners and viewers, to the private schools, fraternity, proprietors, teachers, parents who have come together to join the Ghana National Council of Private Schools. Johnny, what we are saying is not allegation. What we are saying is an actual fact. Empirical evidence are available to prove to the point that we are not sitting in vacuum and making any word statements. And I will explain that. Johnny, you know very well that this country is governed with certain principles and procedures. And in Ghana, the 1992 Constitution is the supreme document that steers the affairs of whatever we are supposed to do as Ghanaians. And when President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo was installed as the president, he made a very useful statement that we need not to be just spectators, but we have to be citizens. And for that matter, whenever things are going on, we need to speak about it. Let's start our conversation from where the private school draw their mandate. Private schools within the Constitution, Article 25, Clause 2, actually provide two major rights: right of establishment and right of maintenance for each and every individual to set up a school at all levels using his or her own resources to do that. And it's based on that we also charge school fees to ensure that private schools or children who have been entrusted in our care are well catered for. The same Constitution, Article 38, enjoins the state to provide educational facilities for all. So if a school has not been established in most of the areas that you are aware, when you go to Kasua, Kumasi, Abusiakrua, and majority of the parts of this country, the government is not living to that kind of expectation or the constitutional mandate that has been given to the government. The same Constitution, Article 25.
Okay, so we need to cut the chase because we don't have too much time. I know that there are laws that help you to establish and give you the grounding.
I'm making a point.
You have made an allegation against government.
And explaining that.
So how, because I can't see the Constitution. I can't see the answer of that question.
The Constitution is saying that the distribution of national educational facilities is supposed to be fair.
Absolutely.
And for that matter, if we have categorized the schools from category A to category C, based on merit that you get in there, 2017, government realized that the category A schools, 90% of them are being taken by the private schools. And it is not just by any hunhudious or any miraculous ways. It was through merit that private school children got to that schools. Government then introduced 30% allocation to say that if you attend a public school and a private student also attended a private school, sitting with the same exams, getting with the same, let's say, grades, that public school will be favored than the private school. Meaning that the public school student will be given the category A school, 30% of it, and then the private school will struggle with the others to share the 70%. All because standards are falling in the public schools, and that is the only remedy government can introduce to that. Based on this, we have consistently engaged the government about it. That is not fair. It is clearly a discriminatory aspect, and we don't want that. Because of that, students getting to Form 2 in the private schools now move from private schools after they have received the foundation and then right in the public schools, and it is collapsing the private schools. We have not talked of the number of employment that the private schools have been able to offer this country. And if you look at all this, it is a clear agenda.
By who?
By the state.
Against you?
Yes.
Oh, how do you say that?
About why do you also come out with a policy that is so inimical and collapse a sector? Why do you introduce, in the space of ensuring quality education, instead of providing what it takes to ensure that teachers at the public sector will be able to commit their resources to get the outcomes that we are looking for, you rather introduce a laissez-faire policy called 30%, so that the child who is attending public school will say that whether I learn or I don't learn, I will get Yasantua, I will get the category A school to attend. Are we really protecting the kind of future leaders that we are looking for? That is what we are talking about.
So your argument is that standards are falling in the public schools.
It is not my argument. It is obvious statement. Everybody's aware.
The private schools are churning out the best of students.
Exactly.
And then in the past, you used to get the Ivy League schools.
Yes.
But now the state is deliberately, sidelining you so that students from public schools can have that privilege. Is that the argument?
Exactly.
Okay. What is wrong with that?
Okay. One, it reduces and paralyzes the system of quality education. Two, it collapses a private sector participation, because we have to be in business and pay taxes to steer the affairs of the country. The kind of employment that we have put in, when the free SHS introduction came, private schools were having about 12,000, employment given to from the 365 private senior high schools. Now, as I'm speaking to you now, private senior high school cannot number up to 35. Strong ones.
The schools are collapsing.
It is not collapsing. They've collapsed. Go to schools in, let's say, Obuasi. Go to Joy Standard, Kumasi. You name them. You realize that the facilities are there. But because of that introduction of that policy, private schools are collapsing.
What kind of conversation was had with you before the free SH program was rolled out so that you would have found a place within the scheme of things?
There wasn't any conversation. We actually forced our way. We had meetings with the ministry. We met the president as the presidency. There wasn't any conversation about it. We were arguing that we are ready to offer our facility. The government, as at then, wasn't have any facilities, so we were ready to partner the government to give our facilities to the government to ensure that students who are doing double track and all these things will be resolved. It didn't really materialize. You understand? So even the free SHS you want to put, because it's obvious that government has made it. But in terms of sitting aloof to ensure that standards in education will come to gutters, we wouldn't.
The GES would disagree with you on this. And they will insist that your allegations are not correct. You have to come with empirical evidence to back it.
If you come out to say that, category A schools, obviously, you can't get admission to category A school if you haven't passed. Because this country, to assess our potential for education, is based on the kind of national assessment that we do.
But there are people with grade 34 and the rest who are in the pre-6 Accra Academy.
That is the reason why I'm saying it. So you go to pre-sec, the teachers over there are suffering, but they can't say. That is the point. That is the point. So you meet a child,
they are suffering.
Oh, am I the one to tell you? They are suffering. Garbage in, garbage out. Let us take research-based and now assess the performance of those schools. Whether those schools are the best schools in terms of the senior high schools again. They are not, because somebody is seated somewhere and government has given the assurance that whether you partake in any of the internal activities or you don't, you have 30%. And children are going there. It got to a time, this Manas Azuri issue,
the placement.
The deep secret is that that 30%, it got to a time government is not even able to get those students for those category A schools. So parents who are capable of paying will then find their way to pay and get there. That is it. Go and ask the child that paid her way through which school he came from. Azuri, eh? Yes.
Manasseh Azuri.
Go and ask. You see, so the private schools are calling the government to immediately rescind that 30% decision. Because you know what? Even if it is about equitable distribution or fairness in terms of distribution of educational facilities, we are not the ones who provide educational resources to the public schools. It is the government, and every money is in the hands of the government. You understand? And we do have private schools in the country that has been classified by UNESCO and other international bodies as low-cost private schools.
Right.
You see, so if it is about fairness, what about those schools? Go to KWASI. Public schools over there are not up to 200. We are talking about 1,005 private schools at KWASI. So if not the support of the private schools in KWASI, what will be the educational facilities that those people over there will be enjoying?
And since you started talking about this, particularly about the placement, because the children are going to school on Sunday, some are coming home today. Since you started talking about it, what has government really said to you? Have they called you to the table?
The Minister of Education met us last Monday. And he is saying that he's conducting research based to check whether the numbers of the private schools are really going down. But the numbers are obviously there. So we are just waiting for the confirmation of it. And then he will see how best review of the policy will be done. But that is where we don't agree. It's not about review. It's about total scrap of what? The policy. Because it is really undermining quality education.
You mean the 30% quota?
I'm telling you. Let us subject our educational, let's say, transition based on merit, based on standards, so that teachers can be checked. Practitioners in it will have standards to follow. Students will know their limits, and then we can come in with mitigation factors to support the educational delivery. It is not about coming to say that, and this policy, I qualify it as a lazy policy. Yes. There's nowhere you can say that children are not getting category A schools. And because of that, I am introducing a policy to aid them as relate or let's say transit to get there.
So they said for the BEC, they do not get the pass mark for category A school. That is it. But then there is an apportioned, quota system for them, so that they can be put in that pool, and then from that pool they can be deployed to the schools.
Exactly.
So whose idea was this?
That was introduced in 2017, so we can guess who was sitting there to do that.
Dr. Matthew Poku.
Exactly.
But
and that is why we don't understand.
Minister,
that's why we don't understand that now we have educationists at the system. Because hitherto you were referring to the minister as somebody who is not an educationist and all that. Okay? Now we have practitioners who have proven from even elsewhere that they really understand the job. Why do you maintain this? We need not to even wait for us to come out before this is supposed to have been scrapped away.
How soon should we do this?
Immediately. You see, we are sitting in this country as subject, not just like anybody who is sitting at the fans there saying that I'm a spectator. And we demand accountability, because you cannot go to parliament to present budgetary allocation that this is how much we are spending in terms of education, and by the end of the day you don't meet standards. And instead for you to call for research base to find out what is mixing, why the private schools are meeting standards. Private schools that you've classified them as low-cost private schools who are using, let's say, untrained teachers and all that, are meeting the standards. What is the hidden agenda? Let us dialogue. Let us share best practices so that we can develop this country. It is not just to come that you sleep in your bed and then one day you come out and say that I'm introducing 30%, or just to cover your shamefulness or, let's say, your performance.
Do you think it's a cover-up?
But what is it?
What are they covering?
They are covering the poorest performance in the public education. Because parents, it was getting to the time parents were about to hold on to the task. International bodies, UNESCO, and all those people who have come in, injected money into the system, were trying to see that educational outcomes are there. And as I said, Ghana here, to measure our educational outcomes based on the kind of assessment that we do, the external assessment. So that is the mode for us to assess our educational assessment, because we are based on objective-based learning.
I see. This is plenty for me.
That's why I was quoting the Constitution to lay the foundation.
You laid the foundation. Now you have
no. But quite frankly, I have listened to the minister, and he makes the point that now a child from you mentioned some village now can come to Van Spring, can come to Achimota. As my brother is saying, that child who is coming to Van Spring must come on merit, not
That's
because
right.
he went to a public school.
That's right.
So that if somebody from private school got aggregate 10 and somebody from a public school got aggregate 15, they will stop the one with the 10 and then they give the
but that's not fair. If
so
if that's happening, it's not fair.
That is happening.
That's what is happening.
That is what is happening.
Some of the schools, sometimes we have to ask ourselves, why do we have Ivy League schools at all? Was it not for a purpose? Because if you go everywhere, if you go to Britain, they have top class schools. You have to go through the
to meet a certain standard.
Yes, and train.
To be there.
You know what I mean? So go through the mill, get the admission.
But if you listen to the education minister, his argument is also that you can't have all the best brains in one school and then all the other ones in another school. So
No,
you want to mix them. How?
Then your categorization of the schools should base on certain indicators.
Yes.
Shouldn't base on academic performance.
Well, he says that we want to mix them up so that the stronger ones can help the weaker ones.
Why don't you improve? Why don't you improve those
public schools?
Those public schools?
I mean,
with facilities, with kind of teachers are crying.
Yes, you can't just mix them.
We have introduced a curriculum as we speak now. There are no textbooks. You understand? So how do you expect that a teacher will do a miraculous way and then pass a child for you to put the child in a certain
I'm just
school?
thinking in terms of data, whether or not government has been able to provide data that maybe shows that in mixing the children in this way, there is more quality because of that. If there's
in terms of the impact,
if that data does exist, for example, that could maybe suggest that
there are no available data that prove to the point that if a child is failed to go through the standards procedure and join the masses at the tail end, there will be a turn up event. You see, education is deliberately a way you put a child into a certain motion and then you get the answer. It is not about you just waking up one day and saying that this and that and that. So what we are asking the government is that standards are falling.
Okay. All right.
Private schools, parents are removing their children, and the schools are collapsing. And we play a critical role, a sector that holds about 42% in terms of the pre-tertiary educational enrollment. It's not a small sector. That they don't put their budgetary allocation on the government. They themselves, innovative way, they've been able to come out, craft their own systems to support education in Ghana.
So bottom line is what?
Government should immediately scrap that 30%. We are not happy. And for that matter, fairness supposed to be in place for all those who are, let's say, delivering education in Ghana.
Thank
and
you.
improve the public schools as well.
ENOCH GYETUAH is not happy. He's not happy. William has been choked. So, well.
last question though.
Whatever.
You made a comment. You said garbage in, garbage out. Were you referring to the students who go in with